Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of Knobi Cooks. Today we are cooking Bolognese casserole, a dish inspired by spaghetti bolognese. This dish is perfectly suited for meal prepping since a whole casserole will easily last you 3 days. Alternatively, invite some friends or family over and have a nice dinner evening. Here we go! Today we need an onion, ground beef, shredded mozzarella, a mozzarella, some noodles, carrots, celery, some garlic cloves, some sieved tomatoes, some canned diced tomatoes, tomato paste, red wine, and some spices, and of course our big casserole. As always, we first wanna dice our onion. For this, first cut it in half, and afterwards cut across it sideways. The more lateral cuts you add, the finer you will be able to dice your onion. Afterwards, just turn the onion by 90 degrees and dice it up. Do this for both halves. Cut down right to the stem so you waste as little as possible of your onion. Next up is the garlic. You can see me do the same thing here for the garlic. For this dish, I very much like to dice my garlic fine. If you like a more garlicky bolognese, just add 1 or 2 additional garlic cloves to the sauce. Pile your diced garlic onto the onions and afterwards turn on the heat. We want to heat up the butter or oil we have in our pan. For this video I'm using clarified butter. As soon as the clarified butter is molten or the oil has gotten hot, put the onions and the garlic into the pan. And then we will move on to the next vegetable, our carrots. You can see me cutting the first pair of carrots into slices. You can do slices if you want to, though I actually prefer dices. And that's what I'm going to cut the remaining carrots into. Later, when the sauce is boiling, the dices will get way softer than the slices. So if you prefer some more bite in your sauce, then go for slices. Don't forget your onions and the garlic, so stir them in your pan from time to time. We just want to get them glassy or slightly brown, but we don't want to burn them. So cut the remainder of your carrots as you can see me doing here, and as soon as you've got all of them diced up or cut in slices, just put them into the pan to the onions and the garlic. Carrots are an essential part of the traditional Bolognese recipe, so I definitely would include them into the dish. It just adds color and a lot of taste to the sauce. Though be aware that this sauce isn't the totally traditional recipe, since I'm not including the pancetta and I'm also leaving out the milk. But this recipe is definitely derived from the original and gets very close to its taste. For now, stir the contents of your pan and put a lid on so we are ready for the next step, which is soaking your noodles with water. Just plain tap water, no salt water needed right now. This is a great tip I learned at some point during my cooking career. Just letting your noodles sit and soak a little bit before cooking will make them preserve more bite in the casserole later on. And if you leave your casserole in the oven for long enough, you don't need to worry about hard noodles at all. If you would rather have cooked noodles in your casserole, then go for that. Okay, so the turn has come for our next ingredient, which is the celery. For this dish, separate the celery into its stems. Take those stems and then cut them into even smaller stems. This makes for extra fine celery dices. And as soon as you have done that, dice your celery into smaller or larger dices, whichever way you prefer it. Also try to cut the celery green as best as you can. Some might leave out the celery green and not include it into the sauce, though I very much like to add it into the sauce. And then, as soon as you have finished cutting your first batch of celery, add it into the pan right away so it can start softening. Afterwards, don't forget to stir the contents of your pan so they don't start browning too much or burn in your pan. If you notice that they're getting too brown, well then simply lower the heat a little bit. Celery is one of those ingredients from the traditional recipe I definitely would not leave out. It definitely adds a special taste to the sauce. If you so far haven't included it in your Bolognese sauce, then go try it out, you will definitely love it. Only leave it out if you can't stand the taste of celery. Or are yourself allergic to celery or are cooking for someone who is. Be aware of this when cooking this dish for guests. A celery allergy is one of the most prevalent allergies out there in the general population. So keep that in mind whenever you're cooking something with celery for other people. Okay, back to the cooking. We will add some salt and some tomato paste into the pan. The salt will help to draw some water out of our vegetables. And the tomato paste, well, if you add it early on, it gets a chance to properly fry and brown it a little bit. Afterwards, stir the contents of your pan very well. Sometimes tomato paste can be really sticky and hard to spread, so make sure you take extra care when spreading the tomato paste. And after you think you've stirred everything well, then put a lid back on so the vegetables can steam for a little bit. But make sure your stove is not set too hot. Okay, so we have arrived at the last of our ingredients we need to cut. Our whole piece of mozzarella. Simply cut it into slices and then put it next to the shredded mozzarella. If you can get your hands on some original buffalo mozzarella, go for that. It adds extra taste to the dish. As soon as you have finished cutting the mozzarella, you can make some space on your countertop. We will not need the cutting board anymore. Before we fry our ground beef, let's stir our vegetables once more. Afterwards, make some space for the ground beef in your pan. And if you have lowered your heat, increase it again. We will need that extra heat for the ground beef. And then, whenever you have everything ready, put the ground beef into the pan. And in this early stage, when the ground beef is still quite raw, it is very important to smash it into smaller pieces. If you ask me, it gets harder and harder to smash your ground beef into smaller pieces the more time passes. So do this as early as you can. However, in the meantime, don't forget to turn your ground beef from time to time. You don't want to burn it. And I also don't recommend you use super lean ground beef, since a fattier ground beef will add a little more taste to the whole sauce. Plus, it will probably be harder to smash it into smaller pieces. As soon as you have smashed it up a little bit, we can start to add our first spice into the mix. For now, I will only add ground pepper and some bell pepper powder. If you add ground pepper early on, it too can fry in the pan and will also add more aroma to the whole sauce. The bell pepper powder you don't need to add this early on, though you can if you like to. I only would refrain from putting in the herbs already. Those we will add later on as soon as we've got a base of our sauce ready. For now, mix those spices under and keep on smashing that ground beef. We want as small pieces as possible. Keep on smashing and turning your ground beef until it's all cooked. And as soon as you think it's all done, then you can start mixing it with the vegetables in your pan. Mix it all thoroughly and then let it cook some more. By now the frying phase is almost over and we can soon start to add the tomatoes into the mix so we can get our sauce going for real. By now turn up the heat in your oven. I'm using top and bottom heat and 180 to 200 degrees Celsius. That is 356 to 392 degrees Fahrenheit for you guys out there in the US. And then afterwards just fry the contents of your pan some more. Make sure everything is as brown as you want it to be and then we can go on with the next step. And in this step we will use our red wine. Take the red wine and deglaze the contents of your pan with it. Stir it under properly and make sure you've got enough heat put on so you can bring it to a boil. As a red wine I can recommend you a Pinot Noir, though I am using Dornfelder right here, which is a German type of red wine. I definitely would also not recommend leaving out the red wine as an ingredient. The red wine adds a very nice acidity to the whole sauce. Keep the contents of your pan simmering for now, maybe put a lid back on to steam it some more and stir it from time to time. And then after some time we will transition into the last phase of our sauce preparation. In this next phase we will add our sieved tomatoes and our canned tomatoes into the pan. You can also only go for either one, though I definitely recommend you using 2 packages of tomatoes. I like to go for the mix. This way I get a creamy sauce from the sieved tomatoes, but also have some tomato pieces in my sauce from my canned diced tomatoes. The double serving of tomato will add extra tomato taste to the sauce. It will also add some of the much needed liquid to the sauce. This liquid or water we will need so our noodles will be properly cooked when we put them into the casserole. So if you add more canned tomatoes or more sieved tomatoes, we will need to add less water. This helps us preserve the tomato taste in our sauce. And if you put too little water into your casserole, it might end up quite dry. Okay, so we now just added some cold stuff into the pan. That's the perfect time to season the sauce. Because it isn't steaming like crazy, it won't make our herbs stick together very much. And for herbs, I'm only using basil and oregano here. If you have those available fresh at your house, then go for fresh ones. I only have dried ones available, but they are just as fine. And then just stir your herbs under so the sauce is mixed properly. Now the time has finally come to add the noodles into the mix. Drain off most of the water your noodles were soaking in, but retain some of it and add it into the casserole. Though make sure it's not too much so your sauce isn't getting too watery. And then simply add the noodles into the mix and stir them under. By now you can also turn off the heat on your stovetop, since we will soon put the casserole into the oven. Make sure you mix the contents of your pan thoroughly for one last time, and then we will only need to add the cheese. For this, first spread your shredded mozzarella equally on top of your sauce. And then afterwards, put the sliced mozzarella on top of the shredded one. I usually place my sliced mozzarella in a kind of sun shape. And that's it, now we only need to bake the casserole. The mozzarella will melt and will create a very nice crust on top of our sauce. And then without further ado, just put this bad boy into your oven, which should be cozily warm for our casserole since we preheated it earlier. After around 10 minutes I'm turning on the air circulation. This will lead to the cheese forming a crust more quickly, and the top of your casserole will also brown faster. But you can also keep it baking at top and bottom heat for a little longer. Though definitely turn on the air circulation at some point so the casserole gets browned nicely. And for this last period of baking I won't give you any exact time measurement. Simply keep an eye on your casserole from time to time and take it out as soon as you think it has browned enough. And then your almost traditional Bolognese casserole is ready to be served. Enjoy! Like I said in the intro to this video, I really like this dish for meal prepping. And I have cooked it for that exact purpose countless times before in my life, especially back when I was still studying at a university. Though a whole casserole is also very well suited to feed a bunch of guests. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Knobi Cooks. And if you have made the casserole yourself, tell me down below in the comments how you liked it. I am Knobi and I will see you in the next video.